Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I was dying to see the inside of a Deadlock and the Shrike side by side. And the only one I have is my masterpiece Deadlock. So yeah, that's the one I opened up to check this out. So I hope you guys all appreciate this for science. So yeah, I have thoughts. These two are by far the pinnacle of OTFs for sure. They are both legendary in their own right. The lockup on them and the action is phenomenal on both. But the Shrike is so outside the box that I really feel like this is a great way to show how crazy this thing is. And yeah, this is probably going to be another long video, so sorry. So, obviously, it is much simpler. This is mostly broken down. We could pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 4 more springs. So we could pull 12 more parts out of the chassis, pull the actual sears and lock bars out, and it would be entirely, oh, and the spring out of the spring carriage. So it could be disassembled a little bit more. The Deadlock is mostly broken down-ish. You still have the mechanism inside, the actual lock mechanism inside the blade that doesn't actually come out. And then you've got the spring carriage, and there's a liner plate inside this aluminum handle. There's other parts. There's the trigger. Yeah, so it obviously the Deadlock is much more complicated as far as assembly goes. They both lock up rock solid. The Deadlock locks up with these. Get this up close. Locks up with the sear mechanism, or the lock mechanism actually built into the blade. It travels along with it. And so when it hits the end of travel, this pin contacts a section of the spring carrier and gets pushed back, which pushes this little, it looks like a ball bearing, but it's actually like a little stretched ball bearing. And, well, I'll just show you. So, get that out, get that here. So it comes forward and locks like that. That wedges it against this side of the chassis, which takes out all of your vertical slop. And then this conical section here actually engages with this ramped section here and forces the blade into this half of the chassis. This steel plate is obviously screwed down on top of the chassis. It basically completes the actual chassis. And then a lot of people don't know this back is just a cover plate really that holds the pocket clip. The Shrike is a little different. Pop the blade in here. You've got this dovetail section here that engages. If you look, focus, there we go. If you look right underneath the end of the sear there's a little dovetailed ramp there. There's a matching one on the other side. And that dovetails and wedges the blade this way, wedging the blade against, you can see these guide channels in the blade there. Those guide channels get wedged against these guide ribs that are milled into the chassis there. And what's really phenomenal about the Shrike, it blew my mind when I figured this out last night. Get that in there. And then another thing to note, both the Deadlock and the Shrike, there's no sear drag during travel. That's pretty remarkable in the OTF world. It contributes to how smooth and fast they fire, for sure. So once it gets to the end of travel here, it hits this ramp, kicks into those sears, and fires them outwards. I don't know if I can. It's really hard to do it and not have parts go flying if I don't cover it. But it hits those cam in against the base of the blade, further wedging it forward against that dovetail, and then these lock bars drop in behind them and wedge them in, giving you a self-adjusting feature. And what's really mind-blowing about this OTF versus pretty much every other OTF, almost every other OTF is dependent on the chassis being a sandwich construction held together by tension with screws to keep it from forcing apart, and that is critical to the lockup and integrity of the lockup. Without this side plate on here, this blade will just lift out. This does not. These side plates are obviously, they're machined Richlite, very thin. Richlite's very similar to paper micarta. So these have no structural strength to them whatsoever. And even if you look in here, in the birth certificate that's on here, they're called Richlite armor. And it really is just a cover for the mechanism. This right here is mind-blowing. You can take this off and it is locked up rock solid to the chassis all by itself. This blew my mind. Like, yeah. Focus. That is currently one solid unit. It's not comfortable to hold, but there is no play. That's insane. It is, yeah. I'm just going to keep rambling on about this if I don't cut this now. But these are two of the pinnacle OTFs in the world, for sure. But this one, oh man. Just wow. Alright, so I'm going to actually pause this because I got a little bit of time. I'll throw these back together, and then I'll just do a little side-by-side open-close for the end, just for funsies. Alright, so these are both groundbreaking, revolutionary OTFs that achieve lockup like nothing else, and do it in very remarkable ways. But they are different animals, even as dressed up as this one is. Like, the Deadlock is an OTF for John Wick, even dressed up in pimp clothes like that. Whereas the Shrike is like an OTF for Dumbledore built by elves. It is, there's witchcraft in this thing. The sum of the parts are so phenomenal. Whereas, yeah, it's a Deadlock.